What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another Shadowlands video. How are you all doing? Hope you're doing very well. Listen, I wanted to do a video talking about my Frost Shock build that I run in Mythic Plus. Because a lot of you guys, there have been people asking me about it, struggling, being like, I don't understand what I'm supposed to do when all the buttons are flashing at me. Like, do not press Storm Strike, do not press Crash Lightning. What buttons are you pressing in what order? I've had lots of really good questions about the build, and it is particularly complicated, especially compared to the Fire build, which is basically just like when you're Hot Hand procs, you're pressing Lava Lash, and then you're pressing Fire Nova when it's off cooldown. Like, those are your two buttons, right? So this is definitely more complicated. I'm going to do a whole run-through of the Frost Shock Hailstorm build and what I run with it. I'm going to give you all my specs and stuff, and I'm going to talk about kind of why it's good and why it's bad. We're going to get into all of it today. So I'm going to try and make this short and sweet so that I don't bore you guys too much. But we are going to talk about it first, then I'll give you a demonstration on how it works. Let me talk overall about it, big picture. What are the advantages and disadvantages of this build? And what does it even, how does it even function? We are, of course, focusing a lot on Frost Shock, right? So you're basically spending most of your time in this build using your spenders, which is Chain Lightning, Lightning Bolt, okay? Those are your spenders. And then right after you use your spender, you want to use a Frost Shock because of what Hailstorm says, right? Every stack of Maelstrom weapon consumed increases the damage of your next Frost Shock, and it also causes it to hit more targets. So you want to build Maelstrom weapon stacks as quickly as possible. You want to use your spenders, and then you want to use Frost Shock. And you'll end up getting a details breakdown that kind of looks like this. It'll be like Frost Shock, Chain Lightning, and Flame Shock, and Lightning Bolt. They'll all be at the top, okay? That's the idea with this build. Build as many stacks of Maelstrom weapon as quickly as possible, use your spenders, and use Frost Shock. You're basically ignoring Storm Strike to a large degree. Only when you have nothing left to press do you want to press it, and I'll get into why that is in a minute. What are the advantages of this build? Number one, it's very strong in like 6-target cleave content because Frost Shock ends up hitting 6 targets with Hailstorm. So it's exceptionally strong in 6-target cleave content. Very good. Okay? Which a lot of Season 4 dungeons, if you're playing right now, a lot of these dungeons have content that's like that. Oops, hit the wrong button here. If we're going to look at the dungeons here, let's look at Shadowlands Season 4. Maybe Gambit and Junkyard would be like an outlier here where you can pull a lot more mobs together. But even in Junkyard, for example, you got those guys that drop the exhaust circle, which LOSs, and you have to move them out of it. In the Gunker area, there's that big acid guy, and he like puts a big pool of acid that expands over time, and you have to like get out of there. It's really annoying. So a lot of these dungeons, like Upper Karazhan and Grimrail Depot, and parts of Iron Docks even, they all have small packs of monsters that are very dangerous. We're talking like 4 to 6 to 7, maybe 8 mobs at a time. If you pull any more than that, it's very dangerous because they all have multiple mechanics that are going on, especially something like Grimrail Depot, where you're stuffed into a tight little train and you're just moving from train to train, and there's just packs of 6 mobs. But they do really dangerous, like, flamethrowers and stuff. So this kind of build works very well for that because you can't pull more than the 6 or 7 mobs that are presented to you. If you do, it's way too dangerous. And for Grimrail Depot, for example, you'd have to go to, like, the entire next set of cars if you wanted to do a massive AoE pull. You know what I'm saying? So this build really crushes like 6 to 7 targets, and a lot of the dungeons are structured in a way that is beneficial to you for that. So number two, this build scales incredibly well with Mastery. So Mastery on Enhancement Shaman says, your Fire, Frost, and Nature damage are increased. Mine right now is 61%. If I press my Fleshcraft, it goes to 68%, right? When you get into the dungeon, you can take Mastery as your secondary stat for the seasonal affix, and it will scale basically to infinity. Every single dungeon that I've been running in Season 4, if I've taken the Mastery bonus, I'm getting above 100% Mastery for my Enhancement Shaman. You can do it on Ellie Shaman too, but just for this particular build, that means all my Fire, Frost, and Nature damage is doing 100% more damage. Well, look at this, guys. What's the top 3 damage that I'm doing? Frost, Nature, Fire damage. More Nature damage. You can see it right here. This goes way up as you go through the dungeon and acquire your mastery buff from the seasonal affix. So that is a way you can build your character, and it's incredibly, incredibly powerful. So that's number 2. Number 3, this build actually has very strong single target damage because of Hailstorm. If you read the tooltip on Hailstorm, each stack of Hailstorm weapon consumed buffs the damage of your next Frost Shock, and then it also makes it cleave, but it doesn't even matter about the cleaving part. It just makes it do more damage. And again, so we're getting multiple scaling multipliers on Frost Shock, right? We have the base damage of about 3k, and then I'm getting more mastery from the seasonal affix, which is going to make it do more damage, and then I'm scaling it with Hailstorm, which makes it do even more damage, and it does lots of damage even in single target. So there's a couple of really good scaling measurements there. The last thing is that this is not reliant on any procs, particularly Hot Hand. Hot Hand is like the big proc that you need to do the fire build correctly, and it's not that you can't get that proc. You definitely get it a lot more consistently than you used to back when, like, in Season 1. But having to rely on a proc sometimes is very frustrating. And on top of it not being reliant on procs, this build generates Maelstrom weapon stacks like crazy. You are never, ever in a position where you are not getting, like, you can use a spender. Like, you're never in the position, like, sometimes in the fire build, you'll be on single target, and you get like a hot hand proc, and you're hitting Lava Lash, and you hit Lava Lash, and you hit Lava Lash, and you're doing good damage, but you're not generating any Maelstrom weapon stacks. So you're just like waiting to try and get to your next spender, and it can be very frustrating. I found that anyway. Sometimes you like are stuck waiting to try to get to your next spender. With this build, you are never ever stuck waiting for a spender. You always have a button to press. Always, which is very good. What are the disadvantages of this build? It can be very complicated to execute, and this is why we're doing this video today. This build can be very tough to execute for some people. Often you will also have to ignore your Storm Strike procs, which will be procking for you on Stormbringer, and you just have to actually ignore them because you're going to have better buttons to press that are going to do more damage. Now, really the skill of this build is knowing which buttons that you need to press at which time. All the buttons will be flashing at you. You'll have Storm Strike will proc, so it's ready to go again, and it's going to be buffed in damage. It's glowing. Lightning Bolt is glowing because you have 5 stacks of Maelstrom weapon. Chain Lightning is glowing because of the same reason. Your Sundering will be coming off cooldown. Your dogs will be coming off cooldown very quickly. Every button needs to be pressed like all the time. So the trick with this build, and potentially a disadvantage, is not knowing which buttons to press at the right time, and that is a very real problem, and we're going to try and solve that today. So let's get into the actual build itself. What do I run? I'm running Forceful Winds, Storm Flurry, and Hailstorm. That's the core. Then you have Elemental Spirits and Sundering, of course. So, we're taking Forceful Winds because we don't have enough, we don't have any time to press LE Blast. There's no time to press this button. Even though it's a very good button, you really want to be pressing it on Chain Lightning and Crash Lightning. This is, again, in a Mythic Plus experience. There could be something to be said for Elemental Blast because it does scale off your mastery as well, but we just don't really have time to press it. That's my honest opinion. Forceful Winds is a very easy secondary passive amount of damage you can add in. Look at my Wind Fury. My Wind Fury damage was almost 5% of my damage, and that's because of Forceful Winds proccing. So Forceful Winds is a wonderful button to just take. It gives you passive damage, which is what you want. We're not taking Lashing Flames because we're never getting a Hot Hand proc on Lava Lash. Lava Lash and Flame Shock become sort of a passive component of this build. You're going to start out the fight by pressing Flame Shock, and then you're going to spread it with Lava Lash, and you're going to keep that spread going, but that's the only time you're pressing your fire buttons, okay? Storm Flurry is here because, again, Hot Hand is fine. Ice Strike is, again, another button that could absolutely be strong, and it's not a bad button to take, but it's a very complicated button to take. Once again, this build is already complicated, and I found myself multiple times not being able to execute the Ice Strike into Frost Shock. Like, you go Frost Shock into Ice Strike into Frost Shock again, right? But in between that, you need to weave in some of your spenders. So you absolutely could take Ice Strike. It's not the worst button, but it adds more complication to the build, and that is potentially going to lose you damage. So for now, if you're just starting out with this build, just take Storm Flurry. It'll help you a lot in single target, and you'll be able to press lots of Storm Strikes, and they will chain off of each other. It's not that Storm Strike doesn't do any damage in this build. It does. It still did 5.5% of my damage. And you can see, because of Storm Flurry, it procced about 3 times as often as I pressed it. But it just... Storm Strike does not scale off of your mastery. This entire build is about scaling your damage off of your mastery. Getting mastery from the seasonal affix, getting mastery from Fleshcraft, and the Soulbind that you're going to take. That's kind of what you're doing. The core of this build is obviously Hailstorm. You want to be pressing Frost Shock after every spender if you can help it. Now, once you get going really, really fast in this build, especially in a Lust window, you'll end up doing 2 spenders for every 1 Frost Shock because that's how much Maelstrom weapon stacks you're generating. But generally speaking, you want to press a spender and then you want to press Hailstorm. And then we have Ellie Spirits and Sundering. You're just going to cast these on cooldown. What legendary am I running? We're running Witch Doctor Wolfbones because, again, this build generates a staggering amount of Maelstrom weapon stacks. You will get the cooldown on Witch Doctor Wolfbones down very, 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 very quickly. My uptime on a 1.5 minute fight was 91% uptime on my dogs. 91%. So you'll basically have the dogs up all the time because you're generating a ridiculous amount of... Look at, I did 367 stacks of Maelstrom weapon in a 1.5 minutes, right? I'm not even going to do the math on camera, but that's a lot. Okay, finally, your Soulbind... I just picked Plague Deviser Marileth because he gives you mastery from Volatile Solvent. And then you're going to want to take Chill to the Core, Focus Lightning, and Tumbling Waves. Chill to the Core is the core thing in this build. Your Frost Shock, this is why it generates so many stacks of Maelstrom Weapon, is because of Chill to the Core. When you press Frost Shock, every target that gets hit has a 66% chance to give you 2 stacks of Maelstrom Weapon. Okay? That's how the build works. That's the idea for the build. Now, I'm going to add a toy. We're going to get our turnip here. Turnip punching bag. There it is. And we're going to place it right about there. So we're going to get the cleave effect. I would love to have another target to hit, but realistically, we're only going to have 5 targets to hit right now, and that's okay. I'm not super, super worried about it. Here's how your opener is going to go. You're going to summon your wolves. You're going to press Primordial Wave, and then you're going to press Lava Lash to spread that around. Then it'll be like Crash Lightning and Sundering in order to build up your Maelstrom weapon stacks. And then you're going to press Lightning Bolt to spread that Lightning Bolt. It's going to cleave all the targets because, again, you've done Primordial Wave, right? So you're going to get a big cleave, a big amount of damage, and you're going to get a huge amount of haste from the legendary effect for the Primordial Wave, right? So a huge amount of haste, and then you go, 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 go. You want to be using Spenders, which is mostly Chain Lightning, into Crash Lightning, or other way around, into Frost Shock, into Chain Lightning, into Frost Shock. You want to just keep doing that. Your wolves are going to come back very, very quickly, and you have to be ready for that, okay? So Wind Fury Totem is down. Let's Fleshcraft one more time. We're going to go here. You ready? Here we go. Wolves, Primordial Wave, spread it around, Sundering, Crash Lightning, Lightning Bolt, Frost Shock. Then we go. We're going quick, 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 quick. Lightning Bolt, Frost Shock, Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, sorry, Frost Shock, Chain Lightning again. My wolves are back, wolves again, Frost Shock, Chain Lightning, okay, spread, keep your Flame Shocks up, Chain Lightning, Crash Lightning, Frost Shock, Chain Lightning. I'm going to do a Storm Strike, weave it in there, Crash Lightning, Chain Lightning, my wolves are back, 30k, we're doing Frost Shock here again. We're missing a target, guys. We could be doing 6 target cleave. This is only 5 target cleave, so remember that. We are missing a target. Chain Lightning, Crash Lightning, Chain Lightning again into Frost Shock. There we go. Remember, I'm pressing Chain Lightning so much because it's getting extra damage from my mastery. Primordial Wave is back. We're going to press that into Wolves, into a Lightning Bolt, and we're going to go, go, go. We're fast now. We're giga fast. Crash Lightning, Chain Lightning. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, this into this. There we go. Wolves are back. Okay, I'm just going to keep going without commentary so I can focus here. We're slowed down again. That's okay. You're going to use Storm Strike a lot more in single target. In AoE, you're basically just pressing Crash Lightning into Chain Lightning. Don't let your Flame Shocks fall off, by the way. Again, the other reason to press Chain Lightning a lot is that every time you use a Spender, you have a chance to summon a wolf from your tier set bonus. So it's much more valuable to press Chain Lightning than it is to press Storm Strike. Here we go. We got our big thing here. I'm going to add one more Flame Shock just for good measure. And we're going to go Lightning Bolt into Frost Shock. Boom. We're going fast. Very, very fast. Frost Shock, Chain Lightning. Spread it around. Crash Lightning. Frost Shock. Chain Lightning. Wolves are back. Chain Lightning. Frost Shock. Chain Lightning. Chain Lightning again. Frost Shock. You see the combo there. Again, we're hovering around 28 to 30k. I didn't even use Lust there. And in the dungeon, you're going to have more than 5 targets. You're going to have 6 targets at least, which will give you more damage. You'll be above 30k, and you'll have the mastery stacking from the affix, from the bonus affix, right? Let's look at our breakdown here. Of course, it's going to be Frost Shock and Chain Lightning with that Flame Shock passive damage coming through because of our just keeping our Flame Shocks up. Wind Fury, almost 5% of our damage. Storm Strike was way lower that time because I just didn't press it that much. And maybe I should have pressed it a little bit more. There's an argument that could be made there for, instead of investing into Storm Flurry, you could invest into Ice Strike. But again, you saw how fast the build was. It gets really complicated and really fast, and you have to be careful how quickly you're kind of doing it, because if you add additional buttons like Ice Strike or Ellie Blast, it gets very complicated very, very quickly, and that can just be kind of tough. I'm not saying these buttons are bad, but that's sort of like an advanced level of this build. So you can see the damage here. Tons of Frost Shock damage, of course. It's cleaving, it's hitting everything, Chain Lightning, and Flame Shock and Lightning Bolt. That's how this build works, guys. What's amazing about this build, there are no cooldowns. You have your Wolves, which is obviously a cooldown, but it's not really. Because, look, I had 92% uptime on my Wolves for 2 minutes straight. 92% uptime for 2 minutes. That's a lot of Wolf uptime. And you can pull that off. So it's not really a cooldown. You're just pressing it. It's more, instead of a 2-minute cooldown or 1.5 minute cooldown, it's really more like a 15-second cooldown if you're playing this correctly. Okay? That's how this build functions. It is a pack to pack to pack. You'll have the same damage every single time. Whenever you have a pack and you have Primordial Wave up, you're going to have more damage for sure. But even in the other packs where you don't have Primordial Wave up, you're still going to have your Wolves up. You're going to be pressing Frost Shock every 4 to 5 seconds. It's a lot of damage, and it happens on every pack. We don't have to rely on a big cooldown. We don't have to rely on a Hot Hem proc. We don't have to rely on getting lucky for anything. All the power is in your hands to make this build perform exceptionally well. So that's how the build works. Let me just run through it one more time. You put your Wind Fury totem down. It doesn't matter. You start with Primordial Wave into Lava Lash to spread the damage around. Then you want to get Sundering out of the way. Then you're likely going to have generated enough Maelstrom weapon stacks from your Wolves being out already. You're going to consume the Primordial Wave buff with a Lightning Bolt. It'll cleave to everything. You get a big haste buff, and then you go, 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 go. You want to go Crash Lightning, Chain Lightning, Frost Shock. Chain Lightning, Frost Shock, Chain Lightning, Frost Shock. Oh, look, your Wolves are back. Pressure Wolves again. Chain Lightning, Frost Shock, Sundering. Make sure you keep up your Flame Shocks with a Lava Lash every once in a while, and that's it. That's the whole build. That's what you're going to get out of it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I tried to sort of explain it for you here. Let me know if there's anything you don't quite understand about this build. By and large, as you saw in that footage, you're ignoring Storm Strike. Why? Because you're scaling Mastery, and the damage of Storm Strike does not go up with Mastery, but your Nature damage and your Frost damage and your Fire damage does go up with Mastery. So that's kind of what you're aiming for. Okay? That's it, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I love you all. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe. Do all those wonderful things. I will see you in the next one.